Deputy Joan Burton, please.
Thank you. This is in relation to the PwC report on the National Children's Hospital, which I have to say, sadly, has to be one of the most damning indictments of the performance of any government department, in this case obviously the Department of Health, but also in general of a government, of a cost overrun on a project which has to be one of the biggest cost overruns in the entire European Union in relation to a project of this nature. And I want to know what the Minister is basically planning to do to avoid similar disasters. We heard about the 3 billion broadband yesterday from this government. How can we believe any of it?
Deputy Minister.
I propose to take parliamentary questions 12 and 20 together.
Okay.
The management, the delivery and the oversight of individual projects and public services within the agreed allocations is a responsibility of every department and minister. With this in mind, the monitoring of the National Children's Hospital project, including management of the costs and residual risks, is a matter in the first instance for the Minister and the Department of Health. The Government published a report on the independent review of escalation in National Children's Hospital costs by PwC. It was commissioned by the HSE. The report acknowledges the National Children's Hospital is a project that was unique in scope, scale and complexity. It made 11 recommendations, 9 of them related to specific execution and 2 of them related to my own government department. As I said in the debate last night on the National Children's Hospital, I'm committed to ensuring that the recommendations that have been made of my department are carried out. I have acknowledged on a number of times what should have happened differently and better on this project. And the Deputy is correct to point out what went wrong with this process, but I'd also make the point to the Deputy that at the end of this we will have a National Children's Hospital facility capable of delivering world-class care to young boys and girls, and of course as part of all of that cost is the new facility that will be opened up in the James Connolly Hospital in the constituency of Deputy Burton, which will play a role in improved health care to young boys and girls before the main site in James Street is in place.
Well, as the Minister has brought up the future, what's not contained in this report and not contained in his remarks is that all of the experts have said that there needs to be a co-located maternity hospital, which is likely to be the Coombe, because the Coombe does need to be replaced. And yet you've avoided any mention of that in terms of this wonderful hospital of the future. It won't be a wonderful hospital of the future according to the dedicated doctors and medics and nursing staff unless there's a co-located maternity hospital, because it's the sickest babies who, as medical technology develops, their situation and the danger to them can be predicted. And all I can say is it just makes incredibly sad reading. You said there that your department has accepted the 2 recommendations, I presume 10 and 11. 11 is a central assurance and challenge function should be established within government. Are you saying, Minister, that you're going to establish that within DPAIR to basically be able to ride shotgun on future projects? Because we saw the 3 billion for the broadband yesterday, and the Taoiseach didn't seem to have a clue what that was made up of. I don't know whether you have.
Deputy O'Brien.
Yeah, and I've discussed this with the Minister on numerous occasions, and he has said that his department will be overseeing 2 of the recommendations and the Department of Health will be overseeing the other recommendations. So all we can do is await the outcome of those. I think you wanted 4 weeks, Minister, just to oversee how you're actually going to implement the recommendation. So I'm happy to wait for that.
Yes, what we committed to doing is in a number of weeks' time, myself and Minister Harris will outline how we're going to be responding back to the recommendations that are in place. That were, contained in the PwC report. There's 2 of them that are particularly relevant to me. In relation to what Deputy Burton has said, this is a matter that the Minister for Health dealt with last night. in relation to a number of questions from other opposition TDs. The decision to locate this hospital in James Street was taken by a government that you were part of, and it was the right decision to make. Well, you were part of that government. Part of that government that your own party, as I recall, played a pretty active role in trying to decide whether this was the right decision, Deputy. So it is a little bit late in the day to be raising questions now about the location, given that you were a part of the government that made that decision. I, unlike you, still believe that we are doing this in the right place, and I look forward to getting to the point that this hospital is open. And from what I have seen of the site at the moment, Deputy, they do appear to be making rapid progress now in delivering the building. And while the opening of that hospital won't make us forget the difficulties and debates that it has caused, perhaps it might make us realise the difference that it's going to make to the boys and girls who will be depending on it.
Well, perhaps then you should take a drive past Blanchardstown, because you will actually see in Blanchardstown, which is a greenfield site, on an expansive site, that in fact the relatively small, I think the cost of it is less than 50 million, secondary facility for children is almost complete on budget. Your problem is the site, and you've raised the discussions in Cabinet of that time. Your colleague, who's now the Taoiseach, was extremely unhappy about the site at the time, but he went with the direction, as did that Cabinet, and decision of the then Fine Gael Minister for Health, who had certain criteria based on medical advice. A greenfield site, to people who knew anything about it, was always the most worthwhile site. And to be honest, you need to keep it under constant review, because I would not guarantee that the work, and particularly the co-location of the Coombe Maternity Hospital, will be successful there. I'm saying that it was a view I've had all along, and I accepted the Cabinet decision, by the way, if that's what you're worried about, but your colleague, who's now the Taoiseach, had his view as well, because he took part in many of the discussions around Blanchardstown. Blanchardstown is a greenfield site, and you will see the secondary building that's being built is almost complete there and is pretty much on time. Now, it's only a fraction of the size of the full project, just so you know that.
Well, Deputy, I can assure you I have the pleasure of seeing that new building pretty much every week as I go into your constituency for many reasons. And I'm pleased to see it going ahead. But as I said a moment ago, while I am pleased to see that project being delivered, you were part of the Cabinet that made that decision. And it is late in the day for you now to be saying that there are difficulties in relation to it, given that you were around the table when the decision was made. And at least Deputy McGrath, at least Deputy Burton is willing to make constructive interventions in this debate, unlike you.
Well, I think we would all subscribe to the principle of cabinet confidentiality.